I mentioned in last week's live stream that I plan to reissue a series of books under the 7 Conversations series. And I do have the current edition that was written several years ago called 7 Conversations to Freedom, where I discuss issues of health and entrepreneurship and capitalism, and freeing yourself from preconceived and standard notions of what constitutes health, what constitutes wealth, what constitutes freedom. However, I'm now going to do expand the series, and it'll have 7 conversations to freedom, 7 conversations to understanding people, 7 conversations to succeeding in business, 7 conversations, what have you, to perfect health. So the next one I'd like to test out on you is 7 conversations for understanding people and understanding yourself. And these are no particular order, but these are things I've learned over the years from conversations with different individuals, maxims and proverbs that have stuck in my mind over the years, things that have made interacting with other humans a little more, a little easier, because I know a little, or I believe I know a little bit more about what motivates people and how people think or don't think. So these are things that keep coming up that I've referred to time and again in years past, and that I've shared with other people that have helped me understand how the world works. Okay. When I was involved in a network marketing company, I was involved in ACN, American Communications Network. We had some really good sales training that taught us a little bit about how people think, people are motivated by emotion, how people think about opportunity. And one of the things that I learned in that business, but also just in general in life, is conversation number 1. And this is going to sound a little cynical, it's going to sound a little depressing, but most will flake. Most people will flake out unless you've been fortunate enough to surround yourself with people who stick to their word, who do what they say they're going to do. Most people you may encounter will flake out on you. Now, this presumes that these 7 things that I mentioned, that you are not one of those people who fall into that category. So that's the assumption. I'm assuming I'm talking to the top 3% of the population, or the top 10% of the population, in terms of these traits that we're going to mention. But what I have found, as someone who was starting a business where I had to recruit people to show up on time, to do what they say they were going to do, I realized that this is true, that most people will flake out on you. Most people will show up late. Most people will not show up. Most people will say they did something and they didn't do it. Most people will say they will do something and won't do it. So if you understand, for example, as we were taught, that of every 10 people who you attempt to recruit into your business, and this was a network marketing company, of those 10, 3 will express interest and say they're really interested. And of those 3, you're lucky if 1 actually shows up to the opportunity briefing. So over time, you start to realize that most people are not dependable. Most people will flake out on you. So you don't get upset, you don't get depressed, you don't get disappointed, you don't get discouraged if you invite 10 people to your business meeting and only 1 person shows up. So we realized, and we were taught, that it's a sorting game. And this may apply to relationships as well. You're not looking to convince everybody to attend. You're sorting through a barrel of apples and looking for the ones that are ripe. So that's the analogy that was given to us. So you're not trying to convince a rotten apple, as they were referred to become ripe. You're looking for you may come upon rotten apples, you throw those aside. You come upon green apples, you put those to the side, and they may ripen. But you're looking for red apples, and those are the ones who are ready. So again, just a little bit of advice that I've come to understand over the years, so I don't get disappointed, I don't get upset, I don't try to change an individual from where they might be at that particular moment. I simply realize most people will flake, so I'm looking for the ones who are committed. Okay. Number 2. People do the best they can. Now, you may not believe that, but people actually do the best they can given who they are and where they are in their evolution at that moment. Again, similar to number 1. If you understand that people will do the best they can, and they're actually to some degree doing what they believe is justified at any particular moment, then again, you don't try to change people. You understand that there are limitations to a person's awareness, limitations to their consciousness, a limitation to what they're capable of understanding and doing. And again, you don't try to change individuals from since they're pretty much doing the best they can at that given moment. If you want to take on the project of trying to change someone or mentoring someone, then that's up to you. But my advice is only do so if they come to you for that advice and for that mentoring. All right. So that's number 2. Number 3. I've heard it said that it is impossible for someone to do something that they know is wrong. Now, sit with that for a second. It is impossible for someone to do something they know is wrong. I forget where I heard this, but it might have been a psychiatrist, psychologist discussing this on a channel. But the statement is that it is impossible for someone to actually do something they know is wrong. So what does that mean? That means that before they can actually do it, they have had to come to the conclusion, rationalized it to the degree that says they are justified in doing this thing, that they are entitled to do this thing, that they have no choice but to do this thing. So since it is impossible for someone to do something they know is wrong, by the time they get around to doing it, and we all know people who do things that are wrong, then they've said, well, I had to do it for my children. I had to rob the bank because my mother is sick. I had to do this because I'm discriminated against. I have to do this because the system is against me. I had to do this for whatever reason. So in the mind of someone who has committed something that the rest of society knows to be wrong, in their mind, they've already gotten to the point where they feel justified in doing it. So that's very important to know. And again, it just helps you understand not to apply the same standards to everyone when it comes to their behavior, when it comes to their morality, because the mental gymnastics and that they had to go through in order to get to that point means that they're probably beyond reason anyway. All right. So it's just something to keep in mind. All right. So that's number 3. Number 4. And this one, I think, is very good to help you choose your relationships. And number 4 is the way you do anything is the way you do everything. Okay, and that may seem a bit unfair to some folks, but that's the criteria I use when it comes to deciding if someone is friend material, if a girl is girlfriend material, or what have you, or if someone is just business partner material. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. So I can feel confident, therefore, extrapolating your tardiness when it came to showing up at this event as an indication of possible tardiness when it comes to completing your business tasks on time. I can extrapolate that the way you interact with this person in this setting, I'm thinking of an example now, the way you interact with the waiter or waitress at the restaurant is indicative of the way that you will ultimately interact with me given the right circumstances. So the way you do anything is the way you do everything. All right, so that has helped me. Probably limited my my social experiences, but I believe it's helped me avoid interactions that ultimately, by observing red flags that ultimately would prove to be true. All right, so that's number 4. Now, this is one I learned way back. That is really interesting. It's people are only triggered by something about themselves that they see in you. Now, think about that for a second. If you find yourself angry, oh, that gets me so mad, or I hate when people do this or people do that, it could be because what you're recognizing is not something outside of you, but something inside of you that that person's behavior reminds you of. All right? Something about yourself that you are in conflict with, something about yourself that you despise, something about yourself that you don't like, something about yourself that you know is wrong, and that person is reflecting it to you, and that's what triggers you. Now, here's the cool part. Even if that statement is not true, that you are only triggered by something about yourself that you see in another person, if you can use that as an opportunity to analyze yourself and say, okay, I hate people who speed and break the speed limit, and that triggers me and I get really angry. The next question to ask is, okay, how am I doing something similar? If you identify what it is in the behavior that you don't like, they're disrespectful, they're putting people in danger, whatever the reason is, the initial reasons may not be the core reasons, but at some point, if you can delve into why this other person's behavior triggers you, then the next question to ask is, am I doing the same thing? Is there something about that behavior that is similar to something that I'm doing? Not necessarily when it comes to driving or whatever the scenario is, but in other areas of my life, am I also doing the same or behaving in a way that is similar to what it is that is triggering me? So again, it's a good strategy to use to help you grow. Recognize the things that are triggering you about other people, the things that get you mad, the things that get under your skin, and then ask yourself, in what areas of my life am I also doing the same thing? All right. Great. Number 6, the 80-20 rule. And that's something that many people learn in business, is that 80% of all of the 80-20 rule applies to employee situations, workplaces, relationships, all sorts of things. And it essentially says that 80% of the work, if we apply it to an employee situation, 80% of the work is actually done by 20% of the people. All right? Which means that 80% of the people are redundant. 80% of the people are not necessary. In any large organization, you'll find, for example, that 80% of the effectiveness of that company are actually being done by 20% of the employees. And the other 80% are just fluff. All right? And that also helps you understand how large organizations work. And I saw it for myself when I worked for the Port Authority as well. So it's something that might be interesting, the 80-20 rule. 80%, and it applies to different things in life as well. 80% of the power of a relationship is actually accomplished by 20% of the activity in that relationship. Or you can apply it to many different things, but the 80-20 rule is something that often comes up when you start to notice waste, when you start to, and particularly if you worked in corporate America, you might see that. And then finally, number 7, people will do anything for you if they like you. And that's something from How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And It's a very good book. I would suggest you read it if you're not familiar with it. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And the upshot of the book is people will do anything for you if they like you. All right. How is that important? Again, we learned this in our sales classes that if you have 10 minutes to make a sale, spend the first 9 minutes relating with the individual and only spend the last 1 minute asking for the sale. Why? Because in that 9 minutes of interaction where you find commonality, where you get to know their background, where you find what you guys share, what you guys have in common, you're building a rapport that makes that person, or that increases the chances of that person having a favorable attitude towards you. And as a result, they're more likely to give you the sale than if you simply spent nine minutes trying to convince them to give you the sale. So the power of relating, the power of building a relationship is very important. And I had my own personal experience with that. I remember in that same network marketing company, I had a new recruit who I was training how to do the business. And I told her that. I said, it's very important that you spend more time relating to people and just, developing a rapport. So we were at a hotel and we were on our way to the convention and we got in a taxi and I started a conversation with the taxi driver. Hey, where are you from? And he's from somewhere in Africa. And he asked me where I'm from, Jamaica. And we talked about Bob Marley and we talked about all sorts of things, life in Africa. And we never talked about business at all until we were stepping out of the car. We were at the convention center, stepping out of the car, and then I turned to him and said, "Oh, by the way, we're here for a network marketing convention, and we're selling long distance service. How would you like to support my business and give the service a try and save money on your long distance?" And he said, "Yeah, sure, no problem." And he did it. And my new recruit at the time was amazed because it proved exactly what I was saying, that we spent all 90% of the drive just interacting with the fellow. And then at the very end, even, with only seconds to go, we're able to get a customer and recruit. So anyway, people will do anything for you if they like you, which is not to say you should manipulate people into liking you, but there is real connection that you can form with people. And you'll find that life goes a bit easier for you that way. A friend of mine used to say you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar, indicating that life will go much smoother for you if you are sweeter rather than if you are sour.